Alright, well, back to Relatively Conscious. Shout out to DW for making the beat.
At DW made that.
On all socials. We've been asked to talk about Nick Cannon. So
we just had to hop on here casual and let you know
talk about
what's really going on.
Yeah. So, what did Nick Cannon say?
Alright, Nick Cannon, like everybody in the world, has a podcast, you know what I'm saying? So, he and an ex-Public Enemy member,
Professor Grift, I want to say his name is.
Exactly. Discussing our current episode of America that we're in, racial reckoning. And to get to the meat of the issue, which is, in all honesty, the white populace and their inability to reckon with race.
Yes.
And Nick attributes it to the prehistorical idea of the origins of man, and how if the origin of man is in Africa, and man descends across the earth, and there's different branches of humanity that one would divide into race, and the white race was in the cold. They were without melanin. They were rejected, and they had fled to the caves. Cavemen, Neanderthals, not us, but them.
Yeah.
And basically that led them to be cold and callous and savage and more animalistic, by his own words.
Yeah.
So the people that don't have it are a little, and I'm gonna say this carefully, are a little less.
In the June 30th episode of his podcast, Cannon speaking to former Public Enemy member Professor Griff.
The only way that they can act is evil. The only way they have to rob, steal, rape, kill, and
fight or flight,
in order to survive.
Exactly.
So then these people who didn't have what we had, and when I say we, I speak of the melanated people.
Right.
They had to be savages.
The 39-year-old host facing criticism for his comments, also accused of perpetuating an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
The Rothschilds, centralized banking, the bloodlines that control everything even outside of America.
Which is complete horseshit. Let's say keep it real.
There's no reason to mince words.
You're a historical scholar, so let's break down why. Real quick. That's
one thing.
Yeah.
This is attractive because it is prehistory, which you did not learn in school. Because why? The real stuff that you need to learn happened a couple hundred years ago. For your life, that's going to impact you, right? And history is altogether important, but I don't too much care about prehistory either. And that's because it's we know there's fossils and there are people who study it for sure, anthropologists and all that. But we don't know. And what we do know for sure is that race isn't real. And so all theory about the man coming from this place and looking like this, and they branched out and were rejected because of this, there's spiritualities that ruminate on that for sure, all kind of religion about creation, and there's all kind of Hitler theorized about the Germanod and the Aryan race, and black people theorized about some people and ice people, right? And I compare those two, and it may be hurtful. And again, if it's a spirituality thing, I get it. God creates these people; those are His chosen people, and however you dice that out is you. But when the second people, the separate from God's chosen people or from the first people created, whatever, become second class, animalistic, savage, lesser than, then you're just dealing with ethnocentrism, racism, bigotry.
Right.
And that's why Nick Cannon, among also insulting Jewish people, lost his show.
Yeah.
On MTV.
Yeah. So, and I think one part of it is that Christians, and I use the word Christians lightly because you own slaves. You wasn't a man of God. But Christians talked about Noah's descendants and how they went to different parts of the world, and because Ham saw Noah naked, they got to be
cursed sons of Ham.
Yeah, cursed sons of Ham, and then his other sons got to control them, right? Or Cain having the mark of God's wrath and all that type of stuff, right? All of that again is not in the Bible. So Ham is in the Bible, but afterwards Ham just begot such and such, and his brother begot such and such. None of that race stuff is in there.
Also, every different religion has
a flood,
and a cursed people or people who were rejected. If you have a creation story, creation myth, then there are those who are righteous and those who are unrighteous. And for whatever purpose that story serves, believe your religion. Be good, be righteous, try to aspire to something better. But Once you cross over to bigotry, it's a different story.
Yeah, and so, and I know people. Honestly, I understand black people's aversion to hearing black people called racist, right? So, like, whenever people start saying that what Nick Cannon said was racist, many of us, like, well, black people can't be racist, right? And that's why we use the word bigotry. Ethnocentrism, right? Yeah. Because it's not racism about it's building a system, right?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, if you want to say black people can't be racist, like I can rock with you on that, but you're still like every human being.
Yeah.
You could be Chinese, or you could be Malaysian, or you could be South American. I don't know.
Yeah.
And still hate people, and they do. By the way, all these groups of people have somebody. That would be like, we're not them over there. We're not dirty and animalistic and savage.
Yeah.
And so once you start doing that, you're doing exactly what, like you're hurt people. I get it. So if you're abused, you're likely to be an abuser in any context. But like, we better than that. Yeah. let's not do what white people have literally done to us and just turn it around. That doesn't help anything.
Yeah, so the Jews, the tropes he made about Jewish people, right?
Yes.
So you talk about the Rothschilds and banking, right?
Yes.
And
by the way, Rothschilds can be Jews and they can be rich. And they are.
So
you got to admit the facts. That's true.
Let's break down really why what he said was anti-Semitic.
Okay. Like I said, I mentioned Hitler earlier.
Yes.
Which is in debate like a notorious thing. I joke about it all the time because you bring up the most extreme example. I would not say that Nick Cannon is as bad as, but he's trafficking in the same type of rhetoric as, and that is why it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So when you say the Jews are doing anything, like this group at large is doing anything, that's the same kind of stereotyping that leads to a super predator.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy.
Or hip hop is bad, or they're welfare queens. And
those thugs.
All these things come together and create a larger narrative where when you say Black Lives Matter, okay, so you're just trying to justify X, and I don't believe you. And, Jews are in a different situation. Jewish population are doing far better than black people, right?
Yes.
So we're not necessarily shooting down, but one has to understand their offense and how they're freaking out when it's like, I've seen this before. I've seen this episode.
Yeah.
I know how this whole ends. Stop calling me that. Like, some of us have power for sure. And same thing about white people. White people are historically the president. There's a lot of white men, right? Asians be killing it in the maths and sciences. Look at MIT, look at Yale, look at Stanford. Like, they got the students, UC Berkeley, they be there. Okay, it's cool, basketball, black people, we do our thing. Different people do different things, culture, whatever, place in the world, who cares? But when you start making it them to blame, and then it's a conspiracy theory, I mean, I hate to keep, but we've seen it before.
Yeah.
That's what leads to fascism.
And so, like, the banking situation, Jewish people got into banking because they weren't allowed to do other things. So they got into banking. Hollywood, because they weren't allowed to do other...
Hollywood used to be dirty, Wild Wild West. Yeah. Thespian was not respected or a celebrity.
So therefore, it was something that we now respect.
Right.
But at first, it was not that,
And it's like music. It's like hip-hop. Black people have dominated, American music. We've invented American music, and at first it was looked down upon, and now we've made it into something respectable. We're still working on that respect part, but it's not a dissimilar story. Now, we've cut off from the capital end because we don't have the skin tone, whereas Jewish Americans do. But that's the story.
And that goes back to race not being real, because there was a time before the 50s and 60s. Well, actually, before this, I was really the 70s when. Jewish people, Italian people, Irish people weren't white people.
Yes.
Right? They were another, right? They were told.
Another,
yes. And if you look at any 19th century political cartoons before 50 and 60s decades, you'll see them talk about how Italians need to assimilate. Irish people need to stop fighting and drinking, right?
Cut off that Catholic nonsense because y'all have a king and we don't do that in America.
Yeah, so there's always been a goal for them to become more white, basically.
Yeah, and that's then social attitudes change, and we need more white people so y'all can join the club.
Yeah, and so that's why race not being real
is crucial.
And crucial to understanding, right? So this is why Nick Cannon lost his job, because there are consequences for when you say things the end of business saying, right? And I understand black people's want for there to be more consequences when white people say things against black people, right? So
that's why we drag people.
Yeah. So when Megyn Kelly starts talking about how blackface isn't really an issue, right? And then she can find another job, we have a problem with that, right?
Yes, but she did get fired.
Yeah, she got fired from there, but
she got fired from one network, and another network hired her.
Yeah,
but we tried a little bit.
In NBA, when Donald Sterling said the things he said, he got removed from his ownership, right? And I understand the feeling of like Nick Cannon was gone in a day. It took months to get Donald Sterling to release his ownership of a team, right?
Yeah.
If tomorrow Michael Jordan starts saying some wild stuff about any race of people,
gotta kick him out the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he kicked out the Hall of Fame. He's no longer going to go. He went no longer on the Charlotte Hornets, right? So I understand the feeling of consequences not being swift enough, right?
Yeah.
And so now we can get to the black people's response, right? Because one feeling was that he was being there was like a puppeteering going on, right?
Yes.
And that falls again onto that fascism.
Let's go real quick on chronologically.
Yeah.
First, there was a lot of black people going to bat for him. Biggest being Diddy, as in Sean Combs.
Yes.
And he was like, he has Revolt TV, his independent media thing, and he was like, we're gonna figure something out. We're gonna keep Wildin' Out popping, which it's funny. So keep on going, doing Wildin' Out. I like it. But
and he gives platforms to like former Vine artists, former
it's like and he's put on a lot of comedians. It's really great. Yeah. So and Nick Cannon's a nice guy. Like he just made a mistake. And so a lot of black people said, he's got a difference of opinion, and y'all trying to shut him down. That's not American First Amendment. We've seen this before. Yeah. But Nick Cannon, unlike the majority of people who said either you're right for quoting Farrakhan and all this anti-Semitic stuff, a lot of people said, it's a difference in opinion. I'm undecided on it. I just don't want you to punish him so severely. Nick Cannon took the constructive view and said, okay, let me talk to some people. Let me try to fix this, because I have just lost a lot of money. Yeah. And so in reflecting, now, I don't know how genuine this is, but I trust it is genuine. He seems to be a pretty upfront guy. Apologized and said, look, I did not mean to offend. I have hurt people's feelings. I still feel the way I do about black people, but I should not be speaking down on other people, which is all we are here to say. Yes. But then there's another response from the black community after he says that.
And their response is a rejection of the apology, right? So a feeling that for him to apologize was to to be honest, I'm searching for words because I don't really understand what in God's name was that response, because it felt like a rejection of the apology because it felt like he should have said it with his chest and he should have stuck by it, right?
Yeah, he should have just let his whole financial ship sink.
Yeah, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense because what he said was wrong. But and this is what goes back to, if you want to believe what he said was correct, right? Then with him apologizing feels like a mischaracteristic, right?
He's he's abdicating. What does it call it in when they apostasy?
Yeah,
he's an apostate. Yeah, so he's denied that Jesus is Lord.
Yeah,
in certain people's minds.
Yeah, and so what is this apathy? So what is this apathy that black people feel?
Yeah, and I get it, right? Yeah. So like if a group, any group, continues to oppress, and white people is like a whole new thing on the historical scene, like the whole world domination thing, and then like the psychological and social engineering of it, and perpetuating it to this day, but acting like you're not. It's all it's a head trip, and so there's a lot of casualties of that, literal bodies, and then like mental well-being and financial well-being. But as Cornel West says often, we are black people, Afro-Americans, are marked by a love that is equally unprecedented, because we love our country in action. I don't say you have to be a patriot or a nationalist or anything like that, but we show ridiculous love for our community, for each other, for people of other ethnicities by and large. And I think, honestly, all those internet commenters, like I said, a lot of them are just in between. They don't really care. Yes. Because black people do not commit hate crimes. Like, we are just the nicest people despite having some of the worst treatment on the planet.
Right.
And this episode, what we're discussing, is uncharacteristic of that larger arc. Now, a lot of people would have us depart from that, but it doesn't. Like, what has served us the most, what has always helped us, is being stern and standing up to power. Shout out John Lewis, rest in peace. But not taking the white man's BS, right? He worked with King. It was always about consistently about nonviolence, about making peace and reconciliation, but at the same time, not accepting being treated as lesser. Even our more radical leaders, Huey P. Newton, right, was directly against black nationalism, but was definitely for radical change. And you can do that. Like, everything doesn't have to be predicated on race. Have your identity, be Afro-American, be black, but to make this weird invented structure where people of this color and that color, and despite race mixing or despite regional differences where Africans aren't, there's a bunch of reasons why race doesn't work. And just let that go. Yeah. Like, I want America to change and be better, but I don't have to put down white people. They have done horrible, horrible things. But if we were to continue the arc that we're on, where we're making lives better for us and others, we can't, like, detour towards being something else.
Yeah, and so kind of close down the argumentation, right? I think one of the things is that if we're so, there's a shame that comes with learning about slavery.
Yeah.
Right? So, like,
it's not a fun story.
I remember, and being in school, right? And then we started talking about slavery, and then everybody white in school wants to look back and be like, "Was that you? Was that you?"
Tony, can you speak on this experience?
Yeah, and it's like a deep kind of a feeling that comes with shame with it.
Yeah.
And of course, I was like 10, 11, so like, I wasn't a racial scholar, so I didn't like know how to deal with it. But I was just like,
not everybody who's black can speak on it. It's very complicated.
So, and I think with that comes a feeling of like, maybe I want it to be true that we are filled with like,
something that everybody else doesn't have.
Yeah. Because that just makes life easier to believe that, right?
And I've been kicked so long, it's like, so I gotta turn this around some way.
Yeah. And so I understand the honey in that message, right? I understand that, right?
It's sweet.
It's but it isn't true, and it not being true isn't a bad thing. Right, so like, if race isn't real and like we're all the same, then it makes it a much easier thing to attack it.
Yes. Because
you know that it isn't a structure that still exists in the first place, right? So, also I understand the feeling of like, the guy that said white lives don't matter, right?
Hey, what up, Philly? I don't got no family out there, but I love y'all black people. Okay. White people is hypocrites. Okay. They're barbaric. Okay.
You said kill all white people. You really feel
no,
that
I didn't. I said white lives don't matter. See, that's your white. That's your white. What they call it?
Well, do you really
yellow journalism?
But
this is live.
Let me ask you this: do you really believe that white lives don't matter?
Of course. I'm not a liar like you. You just lied.
The video.
The video, right? So like, it's a feeling of like, I'm so tired of the BS, and like at this point, I don't care what Nick Cannon said because F those people over there in the first place. It's been so long with the same stuff over and over again. Now you want me to care about them. I don't have the time for it, right? The place in my heart for it. And I understand that feeling, but I think we have to overcome those urges, knee-jerk urges to feel consumed by that, right? And I think there's a place in the movement for us to talk about it, be real about it.
And be angry.
Be angry, right?
That's right, yeah.
But be righteous in that anger. Right.
Yeah, and be angry at people.
Yeah.
And not be angry at persons, individuals, because there's so many evil people. There's a lot of evil people.
Yeah.
But the white American, as a people, are not, dare I say, are not evil, right? Like Europeans are not coming out the womb with tails and devil horns. You know what I'm saying? But if you're mad at Mitch McConnell,
that's okay. Yeah, be mad at Mitch McConnell, right?
Yeah.
And that's really like really kind of what it kind of boils down to, right? So like be mad at personal individuals, but not as the people as a whole. Going forward, I think at some point we're gonna have to talk about what is anti-Semitism, where the stuff Nick Cannon was talking about comes from, because there's a certain minister who's been talking about the same stuff over and over again.
A few ministers, in fact.
And at some point we're gonna get into that, but not right now. Before we get into that, I just think there's a group of people out there who pulling out these tropes all over again, and
consistently,
consistently, yeah. And that's one of the problems that they continue to be listened to, and they should be just degraded as a whole.
So, be mad, but don't let it lead you to bigotry.
Yeah.
And let that anger, that righteous anger, lead you to do what we have been doing. Black people have been doing this for a long time. And push ourselves as a group, our communities, neighbors, love each other, which we do. We love each other very aggressively, and I love it. You know what I'm saying? We black kings and queens. Keep with it. But just because you're a king and a queen, that doesn't have to make anyone else a peasant. Right?
All right, so this is Relatively Conscious. I'm Antonius Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
This is the Kind of Woke Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
Do it to him,